going to record right now. I'm not sure if it lets everyone else know that it's recording, but it says on my computer. So we will get started. Thank you all for attending. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and then we could just go along, or we could wait until the end. Michelle so graciously has put herself as a resource to our group so that we can discuss archives and the Society of American Archivists and what it's like to be perhaps a certified archivist, basically anything that you would like to know and that she can answer. So I'm going to pass it over to you. I will go to the questions now, and however you'd like to format this.
All right, it looks good to me there. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, so thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and I hope you guys know a little bit about me. My name is Michelle Ganz. I'm the archivist for William McDonough in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I used to be with the Abraham Lincoln Library and Museum in Tennessee. So let's go ahead and jump right into the questions, and then if we've got some extra time at the end, I've got a little bit of extra kind of information for you guys. So the first question was, what made me want to become an archivist? And it's kind of funny, I actually have always been an archivist. I did archival things as a small child, but I really decided to become an archivist when I got an interview for what I thought was the library at Ohio State, and turned out to be the archive. But I took the job anyway, and 3 days later, I looked around at everyone and said, you get to do this every day. How do I do this? And immediately got myself on a track to get into library science school and get to where I am today. I'm going to actually go ahead and turn on the camera so you guys can see me, because it seems weird. 1 second. Okay.
I'm going to change you to the presenter.
Okay.
If I can. Okay. I see you. Does everyone else see you?
So, okay. Okay, so the next question is, hello. It's asking me to download something. I'm not going to go ahead and do that, so I'm going to leave you as the presenter. If you want to switch back to the slides, go right ahead.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, so, yeah, so like I said, I kind of stumbled into archives by accident and have loved it ever since then. Okay, so the next question is, what benefit is there to becoming a certified archivist? Honestly, it's a really, really good idea nowadays. More and more hiring managers are putting certified archivists on either the required skill list or the preferred skill list when they're putting up a job posting. And the reason why is most of the time archivists work kind of in a bubble where nobody really understands what we do. And because of that, it's very difficult for them to judge candidates because they don't know what we do. So it's pretty easy to, get bamboozled by someone who's a slick talker. So by having that certified archivist certification on your resume, you can tell them, I have a certain base level of skills. They know that you're keeping up with the industry. They know that you're active participant within the profession, and it lets them know that you can do the job without knowing what the job is. Especially if you're going to go into academia, I would really, really recommend this. And even in the corporate world, they're starting to do it now, so it's becoming less of a thing you may want to do and more of a thing that you really should do. It's really worth it, and honestly, it's 100 question multiple choice test. The ACA is in the business of certifying archivists, not failing people. So they send out a lot of resources to make it easy for you to study for the exam, to get all the help that you need. You get plenty of time to prepare. You have options in how you take the exam. So it's I would really consider it. And the earlier you do it, the better it's going to be, because you'll have more of the full skill set than you would when you just have your degree. Because honestly, the further out you go from your degree, some of the more general stuff you're going to start forgetting because you'll work everything towards your specific job rather than the generalized field of knowledge that you get when you come out of school. Okay, so the next question is, how can I leverage archival internship experience into your job search? A very important thing to know is that when you sit for the certification exam, you have to meet qualifications, including expertise or classwork and the degrees and a number of other things. So when you fill out that application, any work that you do as an intern or during a practicum counts towards the professional experience that you put on your application. So that means that what you're doing as an intern is what you're going to be doing as an archivist. Put that on your resumes as such, because it's real world experience, and it's going to set you apart from the people who are going straight from school to the job market without ever getting any real world experience. The more of that you can get, the better, because a lot of positions are going to ask for 3 years or 5 years of experience, and if you can kind of put that together through semesters, that's an excellent way to do it. Another good thing about the internships is it gives you a chance to get real world experience in what you may or may not actually want to do, because you may decide, oh, I want to go into school archives. And then when you get there, you realize that that's not really exactly what you want to do, and you think you'll be better in corporate. So if you had done some practicums, you would have been able to figure that out before you actually get to the real world and realize, oh, I think I've made a mistake in a job market that's pretty tough right now. So take advantage of those internships. Do as many of them as you're allowed to. See if you can volunteer. Even if you volunteer, as long as you're doing professional level work, it will actually count. And if you're not sure, feel free to email me once we're done here, and I can help you figure out if it actually counts or not. Okay, so the next question is, why did I become a mentor and how did I get here? I became a mentor because I love talking about archives. Talking shop is one of my favorite things to do, and if I can do it to kind of help somebody else out, I'd be delighted to. Another thing is I was really fortunate to have a great mentor who got me into school, got me into my first job, helped me get my bearings, and I wanted to kind of do that for somebody else. So I signed up, and I actually signed up as a protege my first year. And then my second year, I was encouraged to be a mentor, and I was a little afraid because I had so little experience, but I signed up anyway, and it turned out actually I was a huge help to the person that I was mentoring. And so it just became part of what I always do because it's such a great program, and I really love helping people out. Okay, the next question is, what was my most memorable experience as a mentor? And I want to say that first protege that I had was actually kind of the coolest, because what happened is she went from being a student who's trying to get into the market, get into her first position, and I helped her go through the interview process and get her into that position, and then she was able to turn around and become a mentor herself. And I see her now years later, really becoming a full member of the profession, and it was really great to see her grow. And I've been able to do that with so many people, and it's really awesome. Okay, and the next question here is about advocacy, and I kind of want to talk about this a lot because advocacy has become a really important issue for us. The thing you have to remember about archives is we are financial black holes. It's a department in a company or in an institution where you put lots of money into it, but you don't get a lot of money out. Even if we charge for reproduction fees or for research help, it's never a lot of money, and it certainly doesn't offset the cost of archival boxes, which can be breathtakingly expensive. So advocacy needs to become a part of every single thing you do, because every day you should be thinking, how am I going to prove the value of this archive? If somebody asks me, why am I putting all this money into the archive, I need to be able to say, well, I am making people's lives easier. I am saving you money by saving people time. I'm able to do this. I'm able to do that. In the corporate world, they call it ROI, which is return on investment. And even in the academic world, you need to be thinking that way. And so when I submit reports, I try to make sure I qualify things and I quantify things. So when I was in academia, I would break down my reference questions. I'd say we did 100 reference questions this month. 50 of them were for the college students, 20 of them were for high school students, and the rest were for visitors that came into the museum. Then I would list how many tours I had given. I would list how many VIPs I talked to. I would list how many email reference questions I answered. Every single statistic that I could think of, I put into a report because it allows people who don't understand what I do to understand what they're getting out of me. And what they're getting is an enormous amount of goodwill. And what I was then able to do was turn that into actual dollars in donations. In the corporate world, you don't get donations. That doesn't really work that way, but I can still quantify it in terms of value dollars. If I can save, 4 hours of somebody else's time, that gives them 4 hours they can be working on something else. So that's, showing what you're worth is really important. And the other thing that you want to do too is show how integral the archive is to everything that the institution does. Because the archive really is. They just don't think of it that way because it works kind of in the background and under everybody's radar. So when you've got an event coming up, if the archive can then all of a sudden make a wonderful exhibit that turns around and generates visitors or donations or whatever it is that you need to collect, that makes you a valuable part of the team. And that is really, really important, especially in today's downsizing kind of mentality. And honestly, it becomes very easy after a while. Initially, you get really nervous about talking about archives because it's stuff people don't understand, and it's kind of boring unless you're into that sort of thing. So the best thing to do is to try to find things that make it interesting, an anecdote about something in the collection, just anything you can think of that's kind of a hook for getting people interested into the archive and then maybe getting them in the door to actually use the material. The best way to do it is to practice. And I know it seems silly, but like any other public speaking thing, the more you do it, the better you get. Sometimes you never get good at it. Sometimes, but you'll find your way, and you'll find a way to make it easy for yourself. Even if that's just making a brochure that you hand someone, that's still advocacy. Or creating a website. It doesn't have to be standing in front of people and talking all the time. Exhibits are also outreach. You have to think more in terms of a broad approach rather than I'm talking to this specific individual, so I have to create a special thing just for them. Nobody has that much time, so you do generic, they call them elevator speeches, where in 3 minutes you can tell someone exactly what your archive does and what the archive can do for them. Okay.
So these are some of the topics of interest. I don't know if you can speak to any of those, if you have any personal experiences you would like to share. Let's see if we have any other chat questions right now. Otherwise, if you just want to keep talking, we would be okay with that.
Okay, I've got a couple of notes here about professional organizations. So let me talk about those for a second, and then we'll talk about these topics of interest. Will that work?
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think there was a question, or perhaps somebody asked me this: how you guys can get involved at the national level, even if you're students. My number one recommendation is to go ahead and join the SAA now, because you guys can get in as a student rate, which is a lot cheaper than once you graduate from school. But you still get to come to the meetings, you still get the professional newsletters, you can still join listservs. So it's a really valuable tool that you can use for a much cheaper price. And once you join the listserv. Join as many as you possibly can. And you don't have to be active, just get a digest. You know, you don't get inundated with emails all day, but take a look at them and participate when you feel comfortable. I'm going to plug the Lone Rangers listserv because I'm the past chair for the Lone Rangers, but it honestly is one of the best sections. We just changed from roundtables to sections. One of the best sections at the SAA, because we are a huge group of archivists who work alone. It's a lot of information sharing, and everyone is really nice. We'll discuss the same topic over and over and over again. Even if it keeps coming up every 3 months, nobody gets upset, and it's always really, really great information. And we're very open to students as well. So join that. There's also a roundtable called Student and New Professionals. Definitely join the SNAP roundtable. They are made up of people just like you who can help each other figure out kind of where you need to get. And then once you graduate, sit for the certification exam and join the ACA. Once you sit for the exam and get certified, you can get recertified through petitions. You don't actually have to sit for the exam every year, and petition is very simple. There's a great form that you can use to fill out, and it's really worth it, like I said earlier, to keep that certification up. But you can't actually join that until you pass the exam, and you can't sit for the exam until you actually graduate.
So we have a quick question in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we have two questions. The first one, just because it's about the certification you were talking about, says, when can we take this exam? How long do we have to be working after we graduate?
Okay, the exam actually takes place once a year during the SAA annual meeting. It is usually on the Thursday or the Friday of the meeting, but we do a special test site. You have to have 5 people who petition to test at a particular location, and then the ACA will send a proctor out to you, and you can take the exam there. So I actually took mine in Nashville instead of at the annual meeting in DC that year. And I think you have to have 5 years. No, 5 years isn't right. I don't remember exactly what the requirements are, but there's a bunch of different options for putting together the requirements to actually sit for the exam. If you go to aca.org, they have all of the information on the website, because you can do a combination of coursework and professional experience. I feel like it's a year of professional experience and 2 years of coursework, or 2 years of experience and 1 year of coursework.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That makes sense.
Does that help, Alex? Okay, Maria just sent us the link in the chat for those who want to explore that later. And
thank you.
we have another question that says, do advances in technology mean that the archivist is becoming less important to researchers?
I actually would say it's gone the other way. Advances in technology make us more important, not less, because here's what happens. You have a universe of information out there and no way to get at what you actually need. When I worked at the museum, I would have researchers call me and go, can you send me everything you have on Abraham Lincoln? In the Abraham Lincoln Library and Museum, we had 20,000 pieces of paper about Abraham Lincoln. They didn't actually want all of that. So we would do a reference interview, and it turned out that what they actually wanted was 4 pieces of paper about Lincoln's relationship to his children. Technology means that they need us more to help them navigate how to get to information. I spend a lot of time explaining to people how to use the National Archive website, how to use finding aids, how to use OCLC products like Archive Grid. So it's less of the traditional kind of pointing people to indexes in books or pointing people to to folders in boxes, and more pointing people to files in digital repositories, but it's still the same thing.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Rona. As Maria said, that speaking as a researcher, we definitely need archivists, which is refreshing for us to hear since we are going to school to be archivists. Now I guess if there are no other questions right now, Whatever you would like to talk about, it's open to you, Michelle.
Okay, I'm seeing a comment here about Columbia. Let's see here. Um, oh yeah, open days to the public. It's a comment about the Columbia University Rare Books and manuscripts would have a open door day for the public. That is a great advocacy tool. When you open your collections to the public, it takes away some of the mystique of the collections, because all too often people have this vision of the National Archive when you go to visit the Declaration of Independence, and then that huge dark room with the 14 sheets of glass and the special, and so they think that all archives are like that. And by opening the doors to the public and letting them come in and actually see the materials, it takes away a lot of the fear that people have that, they're going to touch a document and it's going to turn into dust in their hands. Because we all know that, materials are a little bit sturdier than people give them credit for. Granted, I'm not going to take the Declaration of Independence out and expose it to air, but, letters, even as old as letters from Lincoln, Civil War era, are surprisingly hard. Okay, let's see, do we have any? Okay, let's see what else I had here. Oh, one thing I wanted to tell you guys is that the most important thing I learned in library science school was actually the reference interview, which seems a little weird because it really tends to be the purview of the research librarian, but oh my goodness, do I use it all the time. Every single interaction that I have with a researcher, even if it's just a student coming in for help with a homework assignment or a patron who wants into the museum doors, the reference interview is the #1 skill you will need, because it's really important that you not waste your time indulging in a researcher's meandering through the archive. Because yes, you want them to enjoy the experience, but there's only so many hours in the day, and you have a lot of other researchers to help. So that reference interview really, really does make it important to kind of help manage your time and help manage the patron's experience within the archive. Because if they're frustrated when they leave, they're going to tell everybody they know what an awful experience they had. They may not tell everyone if they had a great experience, but they will definitely tell people if it was bad. And you don't want that, because that sort of bad PR is nearly impossible to eradicate in the age of Yelp. Okay, I'm seeing a comment here about visible documents, and that is 100% true. A contact with the documents is really it's a changing experience for a lot of people, especially if they're younger. One of the greatest things I could do at the museum was bring in younger kids into the archive, and we would do a VIP tour, and at the end of the tour, I would put white gloves on them and then let them hold a Lincoln document that had been encapsulated in Mylar, and let the person with them take photos. And I have to say that I got more thank you cards for letting a kid hold a document than any other thing that I could have done in the museum, including help people, write their dissertations. Okay, now I'm not sure how it works here, if you guys have help with doing job searches or not. But I have some advice I wanted to give you guys, because when I went to school, I didn't get as much help with this as I hoped I would, and I want to make sure that other people have a chance to understand how this works. So if it's okay with you guys, I'd want to talk a little bit about the documents that you need for applying for a job and how the interview process kind of works.
I think we would all be excited to hear that.
Okay, so the first thing is, you need 3 documents, and I would actually start those documents right now, like today after we're done here, get started on them. Because what you're going to want is a cover letter, a curriculum vitae, and a resume. And the cover letter is going to be a document that you send that is specific for the job you're applying. And what you're going to want to do there is make a one-to-one comparison for the items that are listed in the job search. It'll have, we want you to have X number of years experience doing this, that, and the other thing. Go ahead and put them in bullet points if you want to, and just list, I can do this, I can do that, I have 3 years of experience in this, and just list it all out and make it real clear. Then your CV is a cumulative multi-page document that lists every single thing that you've done that's related to the profession. And you're going to want to add to this as you go on. So that's why I said if you start it now, then you don't have to go back and try to remember all these things later, because you're going to want to include the things that you're doing as students. The fact that you're participating in the student chapter of the SAA, put that on there. Any internships you've done, put those on there and list the specific things that you do in that internship and how long it lasted, all that kind of information. If I can get back into my Google Drive, I can send you guys examples of these documents, but I got locked out last week, so until I can get back in, I'm doing this all from memory. But once I can get to those documents, I can send them to listserv so you guys can see examples of what this stuff looks like. But like I said, the CV is going to be multi-page, and you want as much information as possible. And then you want a one-page resume. And this is just kind of the greatest hits of your career. And for you guys, it's mostly going to be your school stuff, your GPA, all the classes you took, all the internships you did. But you want to make it a real succinct document, because the idea is that 500 people are going to apply for a job that you're going to apply for. The hiring manager is going to spend 30 seconds looking at your resume. They're going to make a decision in 30 seconds whether they want to talk to you anymore or not. So the resume needs to be really, really clean. Work on it a little bit, and there's going to be a lot of different formats out there. Pick one that you like and go with it. The problem that I ran into is I had so many people look at my resume that it started to get jumbled, and I ended up with this weird document that had boxes on it and highlighted section, and honestly, it was a mess. So I ended up starting over again and just having one person that I really, really trusted look at it, and it was much safer that way. Another thing that I feel like you guys should know is be prepared to move. If you can relocate for a job, you'll have a much higher chance of actually getting one. Right now, things are real tight in the market, but it's starting to slowly get better. I'm seeing more jobs opening up. But a lot of times, you're only going to have jobs that pop up in California, and if you can relocate to a job, you might have a better chance than if you're trying to get a position in the city you already live in. You may also want to consider doing archival. Oh, I'm sorry, I just see a question over here. Yes, they're almost always willing to interview people out of state, and usually, especially academic jobs, it's a multi-step process. So you get a phone interview or a Skype interview first, where you'll talk to 1 or 2 people, and then if you go academic, you'll do a second phone interview or Skype interview, and then they'll bring you down in person. And academic interviews are brutal. It's an 8 or 9 hour interview where you'll meet with 4 or 5 different committees, and then you'll do a presentation for everybody on campus, and then there'll be Q&As, and then usually they'll take you out to a meal and kind of see how you are in a informal setting and see if they can go to lunch with you. Because honestly, if you're going to get to the point where they're bringing you out, they know you have the skills, but can they work with you is actually an important facet of the job. And can you work with them? And that's actually a key thing, is just because you need a job, don't take one that you're not sure about, because if you're unhappy, it's not going to be good for anybody, and you'd be better off passing on a job that doesn't feel like a good fit than taking something out of, a need to take that first job that comes along. Does that make sense? Excellent. Yeah, it really is an exhausting kind of interview, but you do get used to it, and they'll give you breaks, and you'll get coffee and water and stuff, but it is a very exhausting day. But it lets you know that you can handle anything, because if you can make it through an 8-hour interview, doing a reference interview with students, that's a piece of cake. Let's see. That is actually all I have on my notes. So does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I see someone's got a question about academic positions. No, not really. I will say that academic places will want you to do publishing of some kind, but unless you're on a tenure track, you don't have to worry about that too much. Oh, I will say that part of the recertification petition includes a section on publishing, so you do get points for publishing, but you can publish, in a blog, you can publish um, in a journal. There's lots of different levels of publishing, so I wouldn't be too scared of it. And I would actually recommend that you start trying to do that now. You can actually do poster presentations at SAA, which counts as publishing. You can even be on panels as a student, which also again counts as a form of publishing, because they usually take your presentations and publish them in the SAA journal, the next volume that comes out.
Could you maybe talk for a minute about poster presentations and what is included in that for some people who aren't maybe of a heritage background or coming from different fields?
Sure. Poster presentations are a way to represent research that you've done. So usually it comes out of a research paper that you've done for a course, or some research that you've done on your own. And what you'll do is you'll create usually, I don't know what the size of the poster is, usually a standard poster board size poster, where you put your research question, and then your research methodology, and then your results, usually in a graphic form, and then have some sort of additional information. And then the cool thing is you get to go to SAA with your poster and talk to people about it. So it's an easy way to get your research out there when you don't have a lot of real world kind of case study experience that you can write about.
Thanks. And we have a question from Maria. Can our students get attached to a mentor?
Yes, you can, provided that you are a member of SAA. That's the only caveat, is that you do actually have to be a member, but like I said, the student prices are much cheaper than once you're actually professional. And I would also wanted to let you know that you can join the Lone Rangers listserv without being an SAA member, and a lot of us do informal mentorship. So if you can't afford to join SAA, get on the list and let people know, hey, I can't afford to be a formal member, but would somebody be willing to unofficially mentor me? And I guarantee you at least 4 or 5 people will email with you within a matter of hours and volunteer themselves. So we can hook you up with someone through unofficial routes if you can't get in through the official one.
Great, thank you.
And
What is the process to join the Lone Rangers listserv? Is it just on the web or?
yeah, it's saa.archivist.org. I'll have all of my sheets that have all the links on them, but I can send you guys a bunch of links to listserv once we're done here. But yeah, it's saa.org, I think, and then you click on the Lone Rangers listserv. You can just search for it, and there's instructions on how to actually join the list through there. Or you can just email me, and I'll email you directly with the information. Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Maria. I've also included Michelle's email in the chat log, which I will try to figure out how to save once we've concluded our webinar here. So we'll have all this information along with the recording of the presentation.
And I actually did join your listserv, so if you want to just post to the list, I'm actually getting a digest of that every day, so I'll respond to you if you just email your regular list.
Great, thank you. I've actually had problems posting to the list recently, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But
Oh,
if you can post, then that's great.
yeah, I actually haven't tried, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, we'll figure that out and then we'll see what's going on. Let's,
Okay,
are there any other
let's
questions?
talk about. Okay, so we can definitely talk about some of these topics then. Um, Okay, so let's start with new trends in archives. And I think someone mentioned this in the comments, but the new trends in archives are the digital world. Everything is digital now, so the big things we're talking about are how to archive email, how to archive websites, and how to make things available digitally. And Born Digital is actually a bit easy. Actually, it's both easier and harder than analog material. Analog material, you have the advantage of picking and choosing what you're going to put online. So you're mostly looking at platforms rather than how to determine which content to use. When you're doing Born Digital material, you have to try to figure out how to get permissions set up so that people aren't using things the way not using things the way you don't want them to, and making sure that they have the access they need without having too much access. So everything's kind of talking about digital right now, and in fact, the SAA has created a new certification for digital curation. It's the DAX, Digital Archiving Certification, and that's a full program now. You can do that through the SAA, so that's really the big thing, although we're always looking at new preservation formats as well, and in fact, we're arguing about whether microfilm is still a valid format or not, and how is the cloud, and is that as safe as we think it is, and best ways to ensure continued access to material. The SAA has a lot of relationships with subgroups and sister groups, and related groups like MERAC and ACA and RBMS. And in fact, we usually do our annual meetings with the records management group, so we always do stuff together. But lately, the SAA has been really working to strengthen those relationships and do more joint work, either in working groups or through certification programs or workshops or published materials. So there's a growing relationship with all of these different groups, and if there are new groups, we try to get with them as quickly as possible. The regional groups don't work as closely with the national, and I think that's actually better than if they were too closely intertwined. MAC is the Midwest Archives Conference, and they exist pretty independent from SAA. They do work together on education materials, but I actually prefer that they're a little more separate because it lets MAC kind of do things their way as opposed to doing things the SAA way, which, because the SAA is such a huge group and they have to cover so many different kinds of archives, sometimes smaller groups get lost in the shuffle. Like, I know religious archivists tend to feel a little left out, and business archivists tend to feel like, things are more geared towards academia because most of us work in academia. But MAC can kind of do things their own way because they know who their constituents are, and a lot of the smaller groups work that way. But and honestly, I think that gives you a bigger view of what's going on in the field. Yeah, you're right. The SAA way is it is a way, and honestly, it's because they've been around for so long. And when you're making decisions by committee, things tend to become more homogenized, which is probably good. let's see here. Okay, so rare books and special collections is an interesting topic, because what I've noticed in my whole time in the field, in the last 10 years, and probably the 20 years leading up to that, is that archivists don't just do archives anymore. We don't just deal with documents or digital versions of those documents. We're doing teaching, we're doing outreach, we're doing exhibits, and every collection comes with books and objects and ephemera. So special collections and rare books has to kind of be part of what you do, because you're going to run into these sorts of things. I mean, even now, I'm working with a living collection, so 99% of what I deal with is digital files, and yet I still have rare books, I still have ephemera, I still have art pieces, so all of those special collection skills still come in handy. In fact, I can safely say that every single skill that I learned in library science school, I put into practice in some way in my day-to-day life, including the children's librarianship course that I took, which has literally nothing to do with what I do, but those teaching skills came in handy when I was having to teach courses at the university. So everything comes into play, and nothing is strictly delineated anymore. In fact, there's a big thing going around right now that archivists wear multiple hats, or you want me to do what, when, that sort of thing, because it's very... we have our fingers everywhere, which is great, though, because it means that we're more valuable to more people. Okay, yes, so this is actually good. The more specialized skills that archivists have, the better, because there are collections out there that need really specialized skills that we don't necessarily have. Because if you think about it, if you're an archivist for a chemistry firm, if you have a background in chemistry, that's going to make you so much more valuable than me coming from a literature background. If you've got a lot of skills in film studies, then there are a huge number of archives that need skills like that. I can think of at least 3 or 4 universities that have huge film programs that have archives that need archivists. There's a new library that's just opened called the Margaret Herrick Library that's part of the Academy of the people who do the Oscars, and they have a huge collection that employs a huge number of archivists. And I can go on and on and on. So the more specialized skills you have, that's great. Put that in the section on your CV, put that in the section on your resume. It helps you stand out from the crowd of the 500 people who are also applying for that job. Yeah, and the other component of that, too, is that the more information you know about your topic for your archive, the more valuable you are to researchers. When I started at the museum, I didn't know anything about Lincoln or the Civil War. And that meant for the first year and a half, I wasn't as helpful to researchers as I was later on once I learned more. Okay, I see a question here about how do you deal with conservation for a wide variety of materials. The answer is yes. You outsource, you learn yourself, or you try yourself, depending on the material. And the key thing is to know exactly where your skill set is and how far you can push yourself. So what I would do is if I wasn't 100% sure about something I was about to try, I would do it on a non-archival piece. So if I was, not sure if an encapsulation material was going to work, I did it on a regular piece of paper first before I did it on a Civil War document. The Northeast Document Conservation Center, NDECC.org, is the greatest resource you can use. They have a ton of pamphlets that are all free, a ton of information on conserving and preservation for a huge array of materials. They offer classes, they offer expertise, and the coolest thing is that if you email one of their conservators, they will talk to you for free for as long as you want about all sorts of, questions you have about conservation. So take advantage of those resources because they're free, and the courses are, when they do offer them, they're fairly inexpensive. Some of them can get really expensive, but you can learn how to repair a 17th century book by taking coursework. And if you're interested in that, you absolutely should, because again, that's another skill that you can add to your skill set that sets you apart. The best way to learn conservation is kind of a multi-pronged approach. Read as much as you can in the literature because new methods come out all the time and you want to stay on top of that. And then try and take courses, kind of take workshops and see what you can learn. And then just try it out. Because honestly, the best way to learn is to do it, mess it up, and then learn from your mistakes. Like I said, you just want to make sure you're not doing it on the archival material, but just keep trying and you'll eventually figure it out. When I first started doing encapsulation, it was awful. By the time I left, I, was so skilled I could do it for the actual exhibits. But the first one I did could not go into an exhibit. I'm curious what someone meant when they said visual materials. Do you mean like ephemera, like posters and photographs, or do you mean like digital film kind of thing?
If
Can't
the
remember.
person who put that in the forum wants to clarify in the chat if you are present, that would be great. But I guess if you could speak of any of the examples that you gave, maybe generally, that would be helpful.
Yeah, visual covers a wide array of materials. So, the thing is to learn how to find the information that you need, because that's the thing, is that we are only human and there's an enormous amount of information out there, and we're not expected to know everything. We are expected to know where to get that information. So if you know that I've got a poster and I'm not really sure how to conserve it, I know I can go to the NEDCC, or I can go to the Library of Congress, or I can go here, I can go there and talk to some people and find out what to do. And then you will find out, okay, this is outside my wheelhouse. I think I need to get a grant and have a professional do this, or, find the money to have someone else do it, or no, I understand this enough that I can actually do it myself. There's a bunch of books that are really good. The Gregory Hunter Introduction to Archives Manual is the best book I've ever seen. It's honestly, I actually purchased it when I first got my first position, and it was like $90 and worth every single penny. I still use it to this day all the time. And the IMLS has something called a Connecting the Collections bookshelf, and it's a whole set of books that covers a wide array of topics on how to conserve things, how to set up archives. It used to be a grant program where you could apply for it and they would send you the whole collection for your institution, but I'm not sure if they still do it anymore. But if you go to their website, they can give you a link, and then you can go to WorldCat and Interlibrary Loan, any of those books. And yes, I will send you a list of the books as soon as we're done here. And like I said, I'll send you a bunch of links to all these different things I'm talking about, because yeah, the key is to know where your resources are and when to go get help and who to ask for that help. And that's the cool thing about SAA, is that we all have a lot of different expertise and we all help each other. So if I have something that I don't know how to deal with, I can go to 10 different listservs and post the question, and within minutes I'll have 10 or 15 answers that are all really, really good. So yeah, there's a lot of support and nobody's going in alone, even if you're in an archive by yourself.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, we're coming upon being in here for about an hour, which I think will be great for our students who are watching the recording. Do you have any last minute tidbits of advice or any sort of things to leave us thinking about?
Not really. I think we kind of covered everything, but honestly, if you have more questions, please ask. And that's honestly the biggest thing, is that, nobody knows everything, so please ask if you're not sure. Oh, I see one last question. What are growing areas in terms of jobs in the field? Actually, corporate is getting much bigger than I expected it to, and I think it's because a lot of large corporations are realizing that they need help keeping their history. I mean, companies like Coca-Cola and Pillsbury and some of the huge national corporations have shown that their archives are immensely valuable. I mean, Atlanta has a ginormous Coca-Cola museum, and that's all thanks to the archive. So more and more companies are starting to see that they need one and setting up a program. And while the jobs are tough to get, academia will always have archives. Most schools nowadays have to have an archive of some kind in order to maintain accreditation. So the archive just becomes a department of the library, and so there's always going to be those jobs out there. You just have to keep looking for them. Oh yeah, and historical societies. There's a lot of niche kind of places that people don't think about using more and more archives, and more archivists.
Well, great. I think you've left us with a lot to think about, and we definitely appreciate you spending the time with us this morning on this holiday. Just a logistical question. If you could CC me and Mario when you send out these things to the listserv in case they don't go through, that way we have them and we could put them out for people in other ways.
Absolutely, yeah. And anybody, honestly, email me as much as you want. As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff, and I'm happy to help you out if you have any questions at all.
Great. Well, okay. I think everyone is good. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I hope all of you have a great day, and thanks for attending. And thank you,
Thanks so
Michelle,
much,
so
guys.
much.